And it looks like we are live, back with another Boxing Squared live stream. It's been a minute. It's been a little while since I've done one of these. And some of the reasons, I've just been super busy. One of those situations where I wanted to be live, but you know, I had actually been doing lives sort of later in the week, Friday, sort of New Zealand time. But it's been, you know, a little bit sort of tricky, tiresome, just haven't really been up to it, but we are live now, so I'm just trying to get into the back end here. So we've got unrivaled boxing talk and news, so he is in the building. He got a YouTube channel himself, do check it out. We've also got Levi and Adam Fahey in the building. Hello to one and all. So yeah, I have actually had a few brews before coming in here. It's been months, literally months since I've done a live stream. So while I'm trying to look at the chat here, I'm trying to go into the back end and actually update the thumbnail, but it's still loading up. So we'll just actually, okay, I'm gonna have to reload that. So just a second. So it's been a minute since I've done a live stream. Literally, I think since January, something like that. Okay, so I found the back end here. I'm going to go in. I'm going to put my little thumbnail here. So one of these things I've been working on in the back end here. Just a sec. You can hear the clickety clack. And there it is. So I've just put the thumbnail on. So we've got Trevor Bryan representing, and also we've got Wilder, Joshua Fury. So hopefully that is actually showing. May take a minute. So I finished work this week a little bit earlier, had a few brews under my belt. I wanted to get on live, one of these things that I haven't done for a while. And I actually did sort of advertise this on Twitter in advance, basically saying, look, send me your questions, send me what you want to talk about, not just heavyweight. Let's talk about everything. Just give me your questions and let's get through it here. So I've got a few brews in advance, waiting and ready, the lid's off, as well as a couple of bottles of water. So let's get into this. So we've got Crazy Carper here as well. Daniel Hale, Aunt Tifa, will race for food. Sean, also Sir Oku Tabiu. Sorry if I've got that wrong there. So Unrivaled Boxing Talk says, I saw your Twitter post. The second you said you'd field other weight division questions, I figured I would come in and ask the dumbest questions. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So Lee the bald guy says Lovejoy to Matchroom and DAZN. Okay, the message just deleted live as I read that. So do you mean Christopher Lovejoy going to DAZN? I mean, at this point, Christopher Lovejoy's got some name recognition, but not much more. I mean, let's face it, if he ends up facing Johnny Fisher or Solomon Dakers, a couple of the guys that he's been calling out, he's going to get beaten and beaten badly. Two Wheeled Story says, yes, back on the Friday morning live stream. And it has been a while. It's literally been 6 months. And, 5 months maybe. So I started a new job, I think it was February the 10th. And before that, I'd been doing regular live streams, maybe for 3 or 4 months. But literally, most of the time when it's been coming to Friday night, I've been absolutely depleted. No energy, no nothing left in the tank. So I finished it a little bit earlier today, and I had something in the tank, and I've got a little bit more in the tank in terms of I've got a few brews under the belt here. And I was like, actually, damn it, we're going to go live. We're going to actually do, you know, a live stream here, and I've managed to already, before we get into this really proper, I've put the thumbnail up. And that's half the battle, because the thumbnail is actually so important to the live stream. Literally, if you've got a good live stream, the views double. Not necessarily from the live version, but it's the replay too. So if you're listening on replay after the fact, I thank you. And yeah, Boxing Squared live stream, it's a thing. We're back. It's only taken 5 months, but we are here. And if I'm slurring my words slightly, yes, I am. I'm about 10 beers deep at this point. We're in it. So throw me your questions. Do your worst. We're into it. So I put out on Twitter, let's actually talk about this boxing stuff, not just heavyweight division, anything else you want to talk about. Let's do it. And I've already opened up 2 other beers in addition to the one that I've got here, which I'm clinking against the microphone windsock, I should say. I would say I probably haven't been this gassed on a video or a live stream since 2017. It's probably about where we're actually going with this. There is a video on the channel in the insight section where I talk about Luis Ortiz, and at that point in 2017 I said he was withering on the vine, and he was at that point, just couldn't get a fight. And at that point that I did that video, because it was one of the those situations where I wrote a lot of notes for that video, I was so out of my mind when I recorded that and then edited it, put it up. But check it out. Can you actually tell? Because I was really trying so hard to, sound like I was, getting all the words out, all that sort of stuff. And I don't think you can tell. Maybe you can now that you know, if you go back and watch that one. I mean, it was at that point in the channel where, I was getting 30 to 50 to 100 views for a video, that sort of thing. So we're a little bit maybe more advanced at this point, but it's been several months since I did a live stream and I wanted to jump on. And I've got the energy to do it, so we're going to do it. So Will Race for Food says, greetings from Poland. Did you hear about the Artispuka fight and the guy who beat Isuagano, Lucas Brzezinski? He won by first round KO. Yes, I did. So that was actually a fight that was at Bridgerweight. So it was one of those sort of sanctioned fights, as I understand. But it was also at the point where it was Monday my time. So it was not one that I could sort of watch and cover live. It was a Sunday fight in Poland, so, day ahead in New Zealand here. So IL says, how come you only talk about heavyweight division? Well, it was one of those sort of things when I first started the channel. I did actually do a mix of things, but I was following the heavyweight division closest, and it sort of became that I just sort of ended up doing that more than anything else. And at the same time, in the same breath, it allows me to be a fan too. So say, for example, last weekend, you've got Ramirez Taylor. I can actually sit back, watch that, and enjoy it. Not having to, because there is this sort of thing where you're covering stuff. You can't relax. You're sort of always on edge. You have to, you're taking notes, doing the videos, that sort of stuff. So there is something to be said where you're only doing one thing and you can be the fan for the other. So, for me, it's been working out well. I do get a lot of requests, from people saying you should cover other divisions, all that sort of stuff. And I get it, and I know why people say it, but it is one of those things, the heavyweight division, that is where I cover, my stuff, and I enjoy sort of, those fights the most. But, it is one of those things where I could, over time, maybe start to cherry pick other divisions, but for the moment, and since early on in the channel, basically, almost 4 years now. So I think as of June 30th, the channel will be 4 years old. So something like 16 or 1700 videos, 4 years. So yeah, it has been one of those sort of labor of loves where I've put in a lot of time and effort. And since I've had, I know a lot of people sort of say to me, why can't you cover even other things within the heavyweight division? And it is also a case of, I have to work. I have to, get that bread from elsewhere, because YouTube, as some people may think that it is one of these things where you make a lot of money, but you can make some money, but it's a volume game. You have to really do video after video after video. And I don't want to always do that, because, I don't want to do 5 videos a day for the sake of doing 5 videos a day. I'd rather do, if I can, 1 or 2 quality videos a day. Since this contract that I picked up in February, So I do contract work, so I get paid by the hour, all that sort of stuff. I've actually had less time to do more videos since then. So I've been really trying to do, 4 or 5 videos a week, during the week, that sort of stuff. And then 1 or 2, at the weekend, if I can do more, I can do more. But it is one of those things where I have to get up early often to do the videos ahead of, going to work, all that sort of stuff. But I don't think people realize that, YouTube is not just a labor of love. Often it can be a grind too, but it is one of those things that has been one of the most, for all the, times you've probably heard people say, how much time, effort, and often money too that they've put into a YouTube channel. It's been one of the most rewarding factors, in my life for the past 4 years. It started off as one of those things I wasn't really getting within the job at the time, the sort of satisfaction, with what I was doing, and I needed a, creative outlet. And, you build this community over time, and you talk about boxing, people are back and forth, and, I just want to thank everyone who does support the channel. That comes, it may not be every video. Sometimes it might be just for, the big name fighters. But anyone who listens to a video that is engaging with the channel, the content, I do thank you, because it is one of these things that, you build it over time. It's time, effort, and money. And I never really knew what it would actually sort of turn into. And at this point, we've just got over 30,000 subscribers, which is almost, in New Zealand, that's almost a stadium for a rugby game, that sort of stuff. So for me, I have to sometimes sit back and go, actually, from where I've started to where I've come, it actually is quite, we've actually come quite far. And I do thank you for that. But I'll get back to the comments here. So we've got Daniel saying, Lee the bald guy, Lovejoy is a hot free agent who might be snapped up by Triller or PBC. Lovejoy certainly is a character in himself. He certainly didn't put up too much resistance first, Mahmoud Shah, but, he has been one of these guys, I guess in the past year or two, despite not fighting, he's probably got, one of the bigger profiles for a guy that's out there. He does know how to self-promote himself. So Chaim says, respect, man. Unrivaled says, outside of the heavyweight division, what is your most anticipated fight on the schedule? That's a very good question, because I actually think, in 2021, despite all the talk, the chat, we don't quite have that schedule, the boxing schedule, outside. I mean, because obviously I was hoping that the undisputed fight at heavyweight would happen. It was one of those things that wasn't quite sure it would happen, but we want those big fights in those other divisions. I mean, it would be great to get Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, but I mean, at this point, we're not going to get it. So Pacquiao and Spence, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest fights out there. Also, you've got Caleb Plant versus Canelo Alvarez, if that happens. I mean, that would be a great fight. I mean, Canelo, one of the biggest names in the sports today. And yes, I mean, part of the reason here, I say it's Boxing Suared After Dark. If you've just tuned in, so at the moment, we've got 48 in the chat. So I have had a few drinks. I'm, just rolling into this. Let's get the questions going here. So Sean says, why all the Usyk hate? He will be a great challenge, and I think he might blindside AJ. Any thoughts? I think he will be a good fight. I mean, there has been a lot of people, I mean, even Eddie Hearn himself and other people associated with the fight, they've been talking down the Usyk challenge and all that sort of stuff. And my take on that has been, that's more about the business side. They want to sort of talk him down and talk other fights up because they want to pay him less. It really is that simple. But he will be a good fight for any heavyweight, not just Joshua. But I do think Usyk is one of these guys that, I think 2018, he was kind of like, that was peak Usyk. I think he's still a tough fight, a hard challenge, but beatable at heavyweight. So Gareth says, any news on Hemi Ahio? No, not at the moment. Sort of seems to be one of these sort of situations where Ahio is one of these guys that, like a number of heavyweights, could be in a fight, but just can't quite seem to get the matchmaking, the matchups that he needs to really progress his career to the sort of stage that it needs to be. Two World Story says, with such big gaps between the top heavyweights fighting, I'd be quite interested in seeing them fight more often, and like the top 30-ish guys between a big fight every 18 months, just so we can see them fight. I mean, I would like to see that. I mean, a lot of the old school fighters did used to fight, 3, 4, 5, even more times a year. And it was a case that sometimes they weren't actually title fights. Guys, even as far as the 90s, sometimes like a guy like James Toney would have a fight, but it wouldn't necessarily be a title fight. And I think there are a lot of guys that would benefit from that. At the moment, you have heavyweight champions that are fighting maybe once or twice a year. It's not good enough. It's not enough. The top end of the division does, it gets stifled and stymied. And I just see we've got Pat D here with a super chat, $5 New Zealand dollars. So thank you very much for that. And like I say, so we've got 61 in the building. So I've done this live stream. It literally has been months since the last live stream. I've had a few brews before coming in here, and it's a Boxing Squared After Dark, taking your questions, heavyweight division, other divisions. There might be a few sort of slurred lines, slurred words, but we're in it. We're deep in it right now. So Will Race for Food says, holy 10 beers, you must have super weak alcohol in New Zealand. No, not really. I'm pretty good at holding the liquor. I mean, I'm drinking this one here. I'm about to finish. Maybe it's I've lost count. It might be number 11. So they're 330 ml. So if you take it as, that's the thing. When I went to Australia a few years ago for a holiday, and I asked for, at the liquor store, a 12-pack, and they said to me, what do you mean, 2 6-packs? And I was like, no, a 12-pack. So, but in some places, say in New Zealand here, a 12-pack, is a dozen beer. It's in a box. It's standard. Not in Australia. I was really weirded out by that. It was either 6-pack or 24-pack. It was just from one to the extreme. Because the guy at the liquor store, when I first went to, I was staying with my sister, he was like, do you want 2 6-packs? And I said, no, the box that has 12 in it, don't have them. So we've just got another super chat in, and I'm not sure who that's in because it says $10. So I'm going to have to sort of scroll down here just a second. It's from L-Dog. So hashtag Team Hrgovic in the building. And it's got to be said, Filip Hrgovic is one of these fighters that sort of falls into this matchroom sort of stable. They're just not really being sort of looked after, catered to. So I'm just saying here the Super Chat's just coming through. So L-Dog donated $10 through Super Chat. So thank you very much. And actually, the video that I did, not this morning, I think it was yesterday morning. So I'm doing these videos before work, not after work. Often it's like getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning ahead of jumping on the bus at 6:30. But Zhili Zhang, so he is now joining Triller. But it makes me wonder what actually happened there, because big deal made out of him signing with Matchroom in September 2020. As I said in the video, I put up the screenshots, all that sort of stuff. Less than a year later, gone burger, and he's joining Twitter. What's that about? Is it because of the Jerry Forrest fight where, he faded so badly he could barely stand on his feet? At the time for that fight, I said, I was surprised that he didn't actually go down. And I guess for his cause and, staying unbeaten, remaining unbeaten, probably good that he was able to stay on his feet there. So Motion says, and apologies, the further we get into this, because obviously I'm continuing to have a few beers here. So this is partly why it's labelled Boxing Squared After Dark. Sort of started, about 10 beers deep and continuing. I'm actually drinking some Monteiths. It's Wayfarer Pilsner, so that's a good drop. about to finish this bottle here, but I've already opened the caps of 2 further, so we won't be held up by any bottle opening or anything like that. So Motion says 8:15 here in the UK. I'm late for work, but this is the first time I've caught you live, so I've had to prioritize. Well, it's been a minute. It's been a while since I've actually gone live. So I was saying a little bit earlier, so I started a new contract because I do sort of contract work back in February, and most of the time I've just been left drained. No energy by the end of the week, so I sort of cut off a little bit earlier. It's actually a long weekend, and I know for those in the UK, this will sound weird, but in New Zealand, it's Queen's birthday weekend. So celebrating the Queen's birthday. And actually, June is not when the Queen's birthday is held. So it's one of those overhangs from it just separating the public holidays in New Zealand, all that sort of stuff. Okay, I'm putting the bottle down and I'm grabbing the new one. So priorities are in order. So I.L says alcohol and live stream time birth style. Probably maybe not to the same sort of extent, but I'm pretty sure that I'll be a little bit more sort of candid maybe than usual. So Chaim says, and that was the chair, that wasn't me. Chaim says, 10 beers deep, you're a lightweight like Ryan Garcia. Your anxiety will cause you to temporarily retire. Don't think that's going to happen. Ashton says, the Hitman Hearns is heading to your neck of the woods. Great for boxers from Australia and New Zealand or fighters based from there. Okay, I'm not sure what that's in relation to for Tommy Hearns, but do let me know. Sort of super chat coming in here. So True 2022 says, how much do you think DAZN subscription will go up by? It's a very good question. Right now, I'm paying $2.99 New Zealand, so it's even in a, I've just let it roll over. It's one of those sort of things. I mean, I got the Haney Garcia fight, not Garcia, I mean Linares fight this past weekend. It's one of these things. I'm like, oh yeah, $3 a month, that's fine. But if it goes up, I mean, now that Eddie Hearn has announced this whole sort of deal with the DAZN, I'm sure that in terms of the UK sort of subscription, monthly subscription, yearly subscription, other places, it's only going to go up. I mean, if it's $20 per month in the United States, I mean, what's that going to mean? $10 a month in the UK, something there or thereabouts, maybe 90 or 100 pounds for the year, something like that. I mean, it'll be something similar for New Zealand, not necessarily in terms of pounds, but maybe $100 for the year. I mean, I'm waiting for that sort of uplift. I mean, it is going to happen. I mean, they're talking about pay-per-view. It's gone. We're going to be looking to do fight nights. We'll pay for the purses, etc. $2.99 for wherever you are if it's outside of the United States. It's not going to cut it. So L-Dog, so he says, what's up, Mr. Squared? So literally I'm behind in the chat here. 62 in the building. L-Dog says, Team Hergovich in the building. TP says, Mr. Squared is his father. Yes, it is. And that's the thing. I mean, sometimes I do get questions saying, I don't know your name. What is your name? Because Boxing Squared is not your name. And that's one of these things between myself and yourself. I don't know your name. You don't know my name. We've got these avatars, all that sort of stuff. It is one of these sort of curious things of social media. Adam Fahey says, a few OGs in the chat. Well, it is one of these things where we've got, yeah, there is a few. I mean, the channel as of 30 June will be 4 years old. I know Adam Fahey himself, he's been a subscriber right near the beginning. UK Rob Boxing, he says, hey BS, hope you're well. Chat, you're good. So UK Rob Boxing, so he's part of Mixed Combat Radio. Obviously, also got his Unrivaled Boxing says, you good fellas. L-Dog says, been here since the early days. And he has, I think it was maybe one of Kiwi Box's early live stream, or maybe not early live streams, but in terms of what I was involved with. So L-Dog as an Elliot, who's, I believe, also from New Zealand, was participating in that with, and also Adam Fahey. So, yeah, I mean, it is one of these things. YouTube is a good boxing community, and they sort of just bumped the windsock there, so apologies for that. You build these communities, you follow. I mean, there's probably maybe 30 channels that I watch on a regular basis that I never comment on the videos, but I follow religiously. Maybe it's not every day, but it might be every second day, every week. There's different videos, all that sort of stuff. It really is a tight-knit community, the YouTube community in general. The people that you see all over the place, different channels and different content. You can get what you want on YouTube. And not just YouTube, there's other places as well. Anyway, I'm ranting there, so I'll move on. Gregory says that I guess it's one of those things. I've been a little bit disappointed so far with 2021. It just feels it's a little bit it's lacking. We haven't had the big fight. I mean, you think about what we've seen so far. I mean, you've had Dillian White versus Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, Derek Chisora. It's a little bit quiet so far in the first 6 months of the year. Fabio says, good morning. Thanks for streaming on my birthday. Happy birthday to Force Ghost Fabio. I do appreciate you coming to the channel and supporting the channel, and happy birthday to you. So True 2022 says, hi all, 8 a.m. here. So I'm starting, obviously, getting to behind the chant here, so apologies for that. I'll try to catch up here. So Ben says, personally, I think that other than Tyson Fury, Usyk is the most difficult opponent Joshua could face. Your thoughts? Well, I think there is a narrative going around that Usyk is just some guy who was a cruiserweight who's not very difficult to face. I mean, that could not be further from the truth. He's a very good fighter, and if Joshua faces him, it's one of the better names on his resume. You think about some of the guys that Joshua has faced over the years in terms of defenses. I think Usyk stacks up pretty well. So Onu says, shout out to you, and shout out to you too. Thank you for joining us here. So Unrivaled says, your channel is incredible. I genuinely love coming here for your content, presentation, and personal need to change it. Thank you for that Unrivaled boxing talk. TY says, talking to other people there, Boxing Squared says, L-Dog, who will take the Hrgovic fight? I'm thinking it might be all the way to Bakoli. Hrgovic is the boogeyman. Someone in that top 15 is going to take it. It's as simple as that. But I guess in terms of, Joyce is also ranked in that top 15. He may be waiting for the Joshua and Usyk fight to sort of play out. I don't think he would turn it down if that, because he's fought Hrgovic in the amateurs, and obviously, successfully. He's had some success against Hrgovic, but obviously the pros is a different story. If Hrgovic is boxing to his style, where he is actually using his height, his reach, movement, he's very tough to beat. I've been a little bit disappointed with Hrgovic in terms of some of the stuff that he's been throwing out, more so when he's just been like, I'm a big puncher, I can knock guys out, because I think he's more than that. So Confused Cockney says, how's it going, people? First time I've managed to catch a live. Well, it has been a while, and that's mostly because I haven't been doing many lives. I think this will be one of the few live streams that I've actually done in 2021. That's just more so a reflection of I've been very busy, very tired often when it comes to sort of Friday night, all that sort of stuff. So True 2022 says, just do what you can do, BS, and make sure you're having fun. Don't let it become a chore. Well, that's the thing. I'm doing the live tonight because I wanted to do it. So I had finished early, I had enough energy, and I was gassed up by listening to some music. It's one of these things, I get different albums, all that sort of stuff. I love listening to music, but I was sort of on a good buzz. I want to talk about some of the stuff that's going on. And we can talk about some of the stuff that's coming up this weekend. We've got Dubois, Dinu. We've also got some other fights that are going on. Caballero and Johnson, Simon Keane versus Don Hainsworth. We can talk about that too. So Sideshow Bob says, hello. Tom says, you and Counterpunch Boxing are the best social boxing commentary channels on YouTube. Keep up the great work. L Dog says Lovejoy was cheated. Cheated from what? He basically fell over when he took the first punch in the second round. I mean, it is what it is. So Tabula Rose says, after dark, it's broad daylight in the UK. Well, I mean, where I am, New Zealand, it is pitch black right now. And I guess the after dark part is also because I'm coming into this live stream. 65 in the chat here, wherever you are, morning, noon, or night. I'm pretty gassed up right now. I think I started the stream about 10 beers deep. I'm about 11 and a half in. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to listen back tomorrow just to sort of see that I was staying on board and not sort of getting too ripped up and profanity, all that sort of stuff. But then again, I know right now I'm trying to be good, not sort of swear, all that sort of stuff. So UK Rob Boxing says, Hearn definitely hitting a Matchroom Australia. How do you see that venture? Sort of hard to say. I mean, New Zealand and Australia, they are different countries. Australia will probably be the priority for Matchroom just because there's more talent there. Even though Australia is a bit of a thin talent pool, New Zealand is even less so. I mean, there's one or two heavyweights of note, and in terms of the rest of the divisions, not too much really. So TP says, I watch other channels that upload a lot, but then I come to yours to get a more rounded opinion when you drop one. So I think it's better that is less often. Well, at the moment, it is sort of a case because I've been super busy with just life, work, life, all that sort of stuff. I'm trying to do as much as possible. It sort of maybe might result in 5 to 7, 8 videos a week. Try to do as much as I can, and I sort of do more towards the weekend when there are fights, all that sort of stuff. But the stuff that I'm covering in terms of the heavyweight division, that you can come here, I can give you a preview or I can give you a review and fold in more things that you can get from elsewhere. Because some of the other channels, they can give you a little bit, but often it's a bit clickbaity. They don't have maybe some of the depth of some of the comments from... They haven't watched some of these other fights, especially if they're up-and-coming fighters. But, yeah, I can only do what I can do, but I appreciate the support there, TP. Appreciate it. So Crypto says, not much happening this month for the heavyweights. Well, this weekend in particular, it's a little bit light. I mean, in general, I think 2021 has been... I think I said in the video, apart from, Dillian White taking out the corpse of Povetkin, Joseph Parker underwhelming against Derek Chisora. We really haven't sort of seen much in the first 6 months of this year. L-Dog says Eddie Hearn needs to focus on getting Hrgovic a fight before expanding to other countries. And this is the sort of thing, you've got a couple of big-name heavyweights at the top for Matchroom, but you've got a number of these sort of fringe world-level guys not really up to much. I mean, Hrgovic, Hughie Fury, Martin Piccoli, out of the fold as well, Sergey Kuzmin, should have been matching these guys against each other, basically taking each other out, getting towards a position where they could be in for a big fight. Never really happened. So David Naylor says, and this is a question he actually asked on Twitter as well, who are your top 5 heavyweights in 5 years' time? It's a very tough question. I mean, I could see 1 or 2 of the current top heavyweights still hanging around that sort of top 5 within 5 years. But you're going to have some guys like maybe potentially Yoka, Hrgovic, Dubois, that next wave, those 2016 Olympians or just there or just after that are still in the fold. So 5 years, that is literally an age in the heavyweight division. So it is a tough question to answer, I should say. Ask and answer. So Adam says Eddie would need Sue, Maloney brothers and Jay to make a decent dent in Aussie, which likely won't happen. Yeah, that's the thing. A lot of the guys that are big names in Australian boxing, they are signed up to different promotional companies, Dean Lonergan, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, Matchroom need to spend into the market to get some of these bigger guys. It's not to say that it's impossible, but it might be more expensive. Talking about markets like Australia, but has it really panned out in other places like Italy or Spain? And people don't really sort of talk about that, but is it really a winner in those markets? I mean, maybe that's a yes. I just don't really know. It just sort of seems to be a bit off the map, a bit off the radar. So Neb says, please can cover other boxing and other weight classes. You're the best boxing analyst channel out there. It would be great to cover other divisions as they're equally exciting. It has been one of these things where it's been a happy medium. I can, cover the heavyweight division, but also it's not just covering, 5 or 6 names. I can actually really go deep and cover these guys that are, top 20, top 30, top 40, and beyond. The younger prospects, some of these guys that are coming out of random places or Eastern European, I do think that there is stuff that I do on my channel that you don't get elsewhere, and that is because I'm able to dedicate the time to those guys, that I'm following them closely. And you're not seeing some of those things. I mean, how many guys in the mainstream of what you would consider YouTube channels are covering the likes of Justice Hooney or, some of the guys in the Eastern European pros that are actually sort of up and coming and that sort of second tier of prospects? I don't think there's many. I mean, there's a lot of channels out there. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of other channels, but it is, there's a lot of clickbait channels that cover half a dozen heavyweights and half a dozen other fighters from other channels. And that's sort of all you get. So, I mean, that's not for me. I want to sort of, kind of like one of my previous, sort of careers that I was in journalism. I used to cover rounds, different issues, different stuff that it was good to get into, get your teeth into, and others don't really have it. But for, you guys that are watching, you cover, you listen, you watch, you're interested in the heavyweight division. You don't just want to see, the top 5 or 6 guys or even top 10. You want information. You're thirsting for stuff that is about other fighters that are in the division coming through. Who are some of the guys that are going to start filling the breach as other guys start sliding down? I mean, that's why I'm interested and I enjoy covering the heavyweight division. I mean, there's probably about 200 people that I'm actively following in some sense on social media, through fights, all that sort of stuff. So I'm way behind the chat here, so apologies if I'm catching up here. So we've got 73 in the building. So one of you sort of who's checking in, wherever you noon or night. And as I say, so Boxing Squared After Dark, a few beers deep here. Ask me whatever you want to talk about here. So it's probably going to be more of a candid session because there's less of a filter. So GT8 says alcohol is cheap in New Zealand. Miss New Zealand for that reason. Well, I guess compared to other places, it is relatively cheap. I was shocked when I went to Australia how much the taxes were on top of the booze that you had to buy. It was incredible. Like a 24 pack of booze was like about $80 or whatever it was, whereas I can get 2 12 packs for $40 in New Zealand. That sort of thing. So Tabula says, stay off the Spates. No, I don't really sort of drink Spates. The thing that I'm drinking right now, the drop. So when I was at the pub before I came here, it was Tuatara and XPA, but this one here is a Wayfarer Pilsner. So by Monteith's, which is a beer from the west coast of New Zealand in the South Island, but it is owned by a big brewer in New Zealand, DB. So David says 330 ml. That's cute. Unrivaled says, Hands Drink. GT8 says, BS knowledge is quality. It's good quality. True 22 says, should pros like Hooney be able to go to the Olympics? I know that is quite a sort of divisive topic, but I don't really have too much of an opinion on that. I mean, a guy like him who's quite young, if it was someone who was a world champion and been a long-serving pro, dominated, I think I might have a more. Justice Hooney, who's 21, so really care. Eddie says $15, half of the beers covered. Yeah, well, that's true. Sami Bashir Ali Hussan with the €1 super chat. So thank you for that. Do appreciate that. So apology if I butchered your name there, but do appreciate that. So Tabula says, is Hearn DAZN's deal good for boxing? It's an interesting question because I think it is one of these cases where the Sky Machine, and I haven't done sort of anything on this. I've just sort of been thinking about the stuff that I've seen, that I've heard from the deal, that sort of thing. It's easy to underestimate the deal that Eddie Hearn has had with Sky, the sort of infrastructure that Sky have, that they're able to push at the masses. Whereas, what is DAZN's infrastructure in terms of the UK? What is the reach that they have? It'll be nowhere near Sky's. But, they're looking in terms of Matchroom globally. But what have they got? At the moment, boxing. For DAZN, in terms of a worldwide reach in terms of what they want to do. Football and other bits and pieces, that's been successful for them. But I don't know if boxing is the vehicle that's going to be pushing them to great successes. Where I am, New Zealand, boxing is pretty niche. There's not a huge following. And in some, other countries where you are, I'm sure it's sort of similar. As it is in the UK, it's not number one, not number two. There's different bits and pieces. But without the marketing machine of Sky, it could be easy to see that, the whole Matchroom endeavour into a worldwide sort of ambition could sort of, maybe falter for a bit. It depends on who you've got, who's pushing the sport, who you can market to the masses. And I do think they will miss, having the Sky Machine. Maybe that's temporary, maybe it's not. So Benjamin says, thoughts on Malik Scott comparing Wilder to Ali? Well, I think it's a bit ridiculous. In what sense? What, better than him? The skills? I know Malik Scott has sort of said that he's been misquoted, but he actually mentioned and paired their names together. Deontay Wilder has had a pretty reasonably matched career after and protected until a certain point. Muhammad Ali was fighting all sorts of guys throughout his on the line from early on and delivering. I'm not sure what we're actually really comparing here, and that's the thing. So Adam says Malik Scott had more beers than Boxing Squared to say that. Yeah, potentially. Scott 70 says Malik Scott on Man Drink Mushrooms. Well, maybe. So Tom says, with main boxing promoters ignoring prospects such as Hrgovic, can you see more and more fighters taking the Hunter route into Triller? What knock-on effect do you think this will have on the sport? See, this is the thing. You could make that sort of argument that some of these guys could go to Triller, but you kind of, some profile, you have to have put some work in before getting that contract at Triller. A guy like Filip Hrgovic, has had a deep amateur sort of record, obviously a bronze medalist at the Olympics. He was a guy that was sparring with David Haye and even sort of caused that sort of fight with, what was it, Tyson Fury, whatever it was, to be postponed because he cut David Haye in sparring. I mean, we're talking, this is like 8 years ago, that sort of stuff. So there's a whole sort of chicken and egg situation that you have to actually have done something to get in the position to get the Triller contract. So you can't just sort of, I mean, if they're just picking up randoms or guys that maybe have potential, they're not going to pay them sort of money that a guy like Hrgovic could get. So it is one of these sort of situations. I mean, it is what it is. In one sense, I can see, you know, he's getting all that sort of money. Good for him. He's put in some time. I mean, let's face it. If he was facing Hrgovic and he lost to him, he'd probably disappear into oblivion. Let's face it. So he's going to get more or about the same for the same, you know, for a fight, and overall get more because he's having a multi-fight deal. You know, it is what it is. So, you know, I don't agree with what he did, because he actually, all the sort of chat he was making, the stuff he was saying, and then he walks away, it's not a good look. And especially because he's going to face some guy that, it was Mike Wilson. I mean, come on, that's embarrassing. But I will say, I mean, this weekend, Ajit Kabial versus Kevin Johnson, now that's embarrassing for Ajit Kabial as well. So we've got a couple of people saying, get the likes up here. Yes, please. So smash that like button. Drop a question, drop a comment, let's get the likes up here. That would be much appreciated. So Tabula says, White fought hard to become a pay-per-view boxer, and now Hearn has taken that away. Well, not necessarily, because, I mean, you have a situation where Anthony Joshua is still with Guy. Dillian Whyte is a guy who's on Fight by Fight. Derek Chisora has been working with David Haye, who also might be on the similar sort of Fight by Fight. You may see that Sky may stick with a small number of heavyweights for pay-per-view, just because they have to. They have targets, they have bills to pay, they've got expectations. You might see guys like White and Chisora not fighting done at Sky Sports. I mean, it could be that simple. It's not just Anthony Joshua, it could be impacted by this. And apologies there were a couple of I'm drinking, is it 11? But Monty's Wayfarer Pilsner. It's a Friday night here in New Zealand. I'm enjoying that. So, and I see there was a super chat from Max B, $2. So that may have come in some time ago. So I appreciate that you've done that, and hopefully you haven't left the chat. So Max B, thank you very, very much. So Confused Cockney says, I reckon DAZN will end up costing something similar to what Netflix does, about £8. Is it that cheap in the UK? I think it's about $17 here in New Zealand, and if you want 4 screens, it's $21, $22, something like that. That's the thing that gets you. It's the screens. At 2 to 4, all of a sudden you almost double your payment. So Michael says, rumours are that Matchroom Fight Camp is stretching to $7.99 UK pounds, still beats paying pay-per-view. And that's how they will, I mean, this is the thing, I mean, casuals, the hardcore, I mean, they need to get a baseline of fans coming in the door. And that's part of the reason DAZN went global a few months ago. Was it 5 or 6 months ago? And I think of the 6 or 7 months they've been global, I might have had it 4 of the 7 months, something like that, monthly. I mean, and it wasn't just about heavyweight fights. I mean, sometimes it was just about they had a good schedule. But, if they're raising some of these things, they've got to have a schedule to fight to. I think I read that there was going to be 16 UK fight nights. So you have to balance and then also internationally, because it's going to get pretty annoying in different places if you have to pay. I mean, maybe it's not going to be so much of an issue now in the UK, but in other places, like I had to pay $40 for Joseph Parker versus Derek Chisora. I mean, come on. And it was $40 for the same for Junior Farr and Joseph Parker. So we've got Thread the Infrared donated New Zealand $5 through Super Chat. So thank you very much for that. So apologies if I'm slowing down here or I'm still trying to catch up on the chat here. I'm trying to get through this as quickly as possible. Do throw me your questions. So this is Boxing Squared After Dark. Managed to upload the YouTube the clip, and not the clip, the thumbnail. And I think I started with about 9 or 10 beers deep or whatever. So like I said earlier in the stream, so I've got 81 in the chat. I can see that here through Streamlabs, OBS. Probably the most gassed I've been on a video or a stream since 2017. And the one that you can look out for, go to the playlist. It's Insight, and it's the Luis Ortiz Withering on the Vine. I was absolutely out of my mind when I recorded that, and it took so long. And maybe there will be a couple of people who are not happy that I've more than a few drinks deep for this one, but it's been months since I've done a live stream. Had the energy, wanted to do it, and especially because I was gassed up, I wanted to do it. So thank you one and all for joining the stream here. 83 in the building at this time, so we're 52 minutes into the stream, and I do appreciate it. So I'm slowly catching up on the chat here, so I appreciate you one and all who've coming in here, and especially those who have thrown in a super chat. Really appreciate that. It has been a very busy couple of months for me, so I've been trying to sort of keep up with different videos, different stuff that's been coming up. Often I've been getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning to try get a video out. And I'm looking forward to seeing Dubois and Caballero, a couple others in action this weekend. Maybe not the greatest fights, but some of these guys fight so infrequently. It really is problematic. I mean, Caballero is like Gary Russell Jr. It's like an annual fight at this point. It's so frustrating. So getting back to the chat here, so I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent there. So you drinks, and I'll second that. Are you a square? I'm not sure what that's about. It's probably from the comment I made maybe half an hour ago, so I've lost that one there. The real Coney Gaming says he's not a square, he's a circle, a squared circle, in fact. Benjamin says, hope DAZN get Jim Lampley back commentating. TY says, the live stream is not how I expected. Not sure what you're expecting, but yeah, probably different to the normal live stream, because you have a few drinks here, and all of a sudden, it turns into something else, going to random sort of rants and whatnot. But I see someone else has just dropped a super chat here. So thank you very much. I'm going to have to. I'll scroll down straight to that. Scott70 says, "Big up square." Thank you very much. So it looks like I'm about 100 comments or so behind the actual chat. So apologies for that. So Confused Cockney says, "So is New Zealand in front or behind the UK?" It's Friday 8:40 a.m. here. So at the moment it is 8:04 p.m. So that comment looks like it's about 25 minutes old, so apologies for that. Benjamin says the DAZN US commentators are terrible. I gotta say, it's not great. So every time that I have dipped out of the DAZN commentary, DAZN sort of feed, $2.99 a month or whatever it is for New Zealand at the moment, one of the things I've been leaving as an exit comment is the commentary is terrible. It's not great. I mean, Sergio Moro will say something, he's like, Billy Joe Saunders is very confident right now, got his hands down, and it's like, it's obvious that he's got his hands down because he's tired, not that he's confident. I mean, there's just some of these things just like, it's dreadful. So Rebel Life Boxing says, Boxing Squared salute to you too. Warren Williams says, what's good to you too. Thank you one and all for joining the stream here. Tabula says, do you need to move from New Zealand in order to become a more recognized boxing commentator? Well, not really. I mean, this is one of these things. This is, I mean, if I wanted to make more of this, I guess I could, but I do have a regular job. It's what, I don't think people realize that YouTube, you don't make hordes of money. And if you do, you've got to be making a lot of videos, and you've got to be getting a lot of volume. You'd need to be getting several million views a month to really make enough money to live by, to keep doing it just, in of itself. I mean, and that's the thing. I don't want to become one of these channels, and I mean, there's one or two channels that other people have already mentioned in the stream. I consider them clickbait channels. I don't want to do that. I want to cover stuff that is interesting to me. And I know I'm leaving views on the table, sometimes thousands of views, because I'm not going to cover every single Deontay Wilder, every single Anthony Joshua, every single Tyson Fury, bit and piece that comes out every day. And if I did, that would do my head in. It would just become so boring. I mean, if you look at the videos that I do on a regular basis, those guys, I will do some videos, but I'm covering a lot of other stuff because it actually is interesting. It's meaningful to the heavyweight division. There's more than it is in the heavyweight division. So the real Coney says, because the Hunter fights are off, going to make Hrgovic Joker so he can expose the fraud Chony Joker. Joker Hrgovic, I'm interested in that fight. If that happens, I mean, I think it's a very competitive fight. So I'm just checking my internet here. So we've got real life boxing. Sorry, someone's saying that the stream is breaking up here. So L-Dog, hopefully it's not breaking up for many of you, but don't make a comment because it'll be like 20 minutes before I can actually get it to it. So I'll try to get down to some of the comments here. So Right Hook Boxing is in the building, so very good channel. So if you haven't sort of followed him, do give him a subscribe. Very good channel, covers the broad spectrum of boxing. So I've got L-Dog saying that Lovejoy is this generation's Muhammad Ali. I actually think maybe I should block you for that, because that's a very offensive comment here. Sean says, Tyson Fury talks about only wanting the big fights besides Joshua. Who will he fight? Not a mandatory. What about the Lion? I guess in terms of Arslanbek Makhmudov, any fight he can get against anyone who's a halfway credible opponent is going to be good for his career right now. I'm pretty concerned for Makhmudov. I did a video for Patreon. Sort of seems to be he's just sort of been left out, seemed to progress his career. Golden Boy can't do it on the co-promotional deal. Not a good situation. Ruben says, need to see Lovejoy versus Brown Australia pay-per-view. So we've got Christian Thun versus Lucas Brown happening July 10th. Brown, it is actually quite interesting, because Brown is obviously shot to pieces right, not really that good. So it kind of is one of these intriguing fights. Dubois of the year so far. Well, that actually happened in 2020, so it's November, wasn't it? So Scott 70 is just, I can see this popping up on the screen, a super chat here. So very appreciative of that. I'm going to have to scroll down to that. What does this say here? Paul versus Woodley thoughts from Thread the Infrared. Well, I think it is one of these sort of cases at the moment. Jake Paul is well matched. I think it is one of these things where, I mean, Logan Paul might have got this fight with Floyd Mayweather, but I do think Jake Paul is, of the Paul brothers, the more talented and the one that could go further. And I think he's being matched the best in terms of the two. And you can sort of see where they're building this. I mean, these guys, these UFC guys, and what he'd been facing before, it's building to a point. And I mean, you saw some of the like against Nate Robertson and other bits and pieces. He is hear from different sources that it's not a joke that this guy is actually in the gym, training well, he's sparring guys, beating guys up in sparring. But, I mean, if it was to be a proper career, you know, he's not going to be one of the best guys, but he might be able to have an okay career. But in terms of the way that they're building Jake Paul, I mean, it's probably what's going to happen from this weekend. You've got Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather. Mayweather's going to beat up Paul, maybe even stop him, whatever. And you'll have the narrative of Jake Paul to avenge that loss against Floyd Mayweather later in the year. I mean, that's just the way that I sort of see that sort of stuff happening. I mean, remember, at the end of the day, it's entertainment. I mean, it's really easy to forget that too. So Joseph says, first time here for the stream, looking forward to it. So like I say, it's been a few months. Yeah, I think maybe January was the last time that I did a stream. So thank you for joining us here, Joseph. I do appreciate it. And as I said, and I'll caveat this, so 63 in the building at the moment. I have had a few drinks heading into this one. But yeah, no, I mean, most of the time heading into Friday, I've been absolutely zonked and have not had the energy. So this is a little bit different. And yeah, I was looking forward to doing a live stream at some point. Even though, you know, I may be on the gas at this point. Throw out your comments, your questions, whatever you want to. Looking forward to talking to you about this boxing game. Not just as well in terms of the heavyweight division. Throw out your other stuff too. I mean, you've got questions from other weight classes. I mean, because I do follow it. I mean, I may cover the heavyweight division, but I am following the rest of it too. So Dan says, oh, Dan Mack. So I haven't seen Dan for a while, for a minute. So hope you're well, Dan. So he says, mental health is an important issue. My question is, what are your thoughts on the Wilder circus being back on the road? Well, there are certainly things that he's saying. It's not gonna engender him to a lot of people. Certainly he's been re-energizing his fan base. I mean, he was, silent for 6-7 months of last year. Didn't really say anything for the past 6 months. You know, you had the odd video about, cheating and other bits and pieces. But, there are certain things that he's saying that are not going to win him any new fans. And certainly, I mean, I guess from what you're alluding to, there could be elements of what he's saying that are actually running counter to things regarding mental health. But, Deontay Wilder, his own man, and, I mean, he's a very polarizing figure. I mean, it's easy to say that, but can he make those improvements at 36 years old? I mean, it's certainly a question, but it's one of these things where some of the comments that he's saying, not just the cheating, the other bits and pieces, the comments that he makes out that nothing happened, or he was fine, or it wasn't Tyson Fury, it was other factors, or whatever, the excuses galore. It's only actually going to build the fight. And I think it's easy to forget that too. I mean, I think the whole gap, because it's almost 18 months now, in some ways, because of what's been said, what's happened, what's been done, in the past 18 months, it actually has re-energized certain elements of the build-up. And I think they're playing on that right now. So Right Hook Boxing says, Squared is doing well here. If I was 10 beers in, I wouldn't have managed to turn my PC on. Well, I think I'm about 12 now, so maybe... No, I'm heading to 13, so I've just picked up the bottle here. I know not everyone will love this sort of stream. Maybe I'm slurring some of my words a little bit. Maybe I'm not quite as sharp as I might be. But it's been so long since I've done a stream. I was out and about, had a few beers, Finished a little bit earlier. It's a long weekend here, and I wanted to jump on, have a chat, and just, get into things. So Ruben says, do you think AJ will stay with Sky once his current contract ends next fight? It's a good question. I think it really depends. Where's the money? Let's face it, Josh will chase the money. If Sky is going to give him a good deal that Matchroom can't match and DAZN, he'll take it. I mean, you could end up seeing him making deals all over the place with different broadcasters. So One and Done says, loved your channel. Why do you cover heavyweights only? Where did it come from? So I guess apologies to other channels that have actually, other subscribers who have heard this before. I mean, it sort of started out as I only had a certain amount of time to actually just cover stuff. And this is when I started the channel 4 years ago. So, I mean, initially I started out covering a whole bunch of stuff, not just heavyweight. It was different fights, all that sort of stuff, cherry picking different bits and pieces. And ultimately, I was busy and I thought, well, I'll just cover the one division, the division I know best at the time, all that sort of stuff. And it sort of just went from there. But it is one of these things I've always been... Hang on. So Joseph Flynn says, half-drunk boxing squared sounds like Lucas Brown. I should ban you for that. That's like blasphemy. That is not cool. That is not cool at all. But in terms of the former question, it is one of these situations that over time I had the benefit of cover heavyweight but also be a fan for other divisions. So you do the heavyweight fights on a card or sometimes on a weekend, you can be a fan for the rest of it. And there is a kind of a happy medium there as well. But for Joseph, who said that I sound like Lucas Brown, that's like internally, like I'm raging about that. Anyway, Blue Collar Sports TV has joined the chat here. So this might have been about 20-25 minutes ago. So apologies for that. Blue Collar Sports TV, who used to be Del Boy's Boxing News. Very good channel. Really enjoy his stuff. Listen to it all the time. Do suggest you go check it out. As in Right Hook Boxing, who was here before, and also Unrivaled Boxing Talk, who was here earlier as well. So do check out their channels and subscribe. Got to support each other. There's a lot of very good channels that, I mean, I think the thing for me in terms of the channels that I like, I mean, maybe this isn't going to be for everyone, but there's a lot of clickbait channels that do a lot of videos, but most of it's just horse crap. And, they're basically making crap up. And I can't get on board with that. I can't co-sign that. I mean, it's either legitimate news or you have a good opinion piece that is based on some facts and they're giving you some analysis. That's the thing that I enjoy, listening to. And guys like Right Hook Boxing, Unrivaled Talk, Blue Collar Sports TV, you're getting that. And I just saw a massive super chat from Unga there, which is blowing my mind. Thank you so much for that, Unga. So, I mean, I want to sort of, like I've just said, with these channels that I support, that I watch, I'm not always commenting, but I'm always, Del Boy will know that, from Blue Collar Sports TV, that, he's got this sort of fat girl fetish. And, I know that, people think it's a joke, but, that's his thing. Don't worry about it. He can do him. But in terms of the channels that I like, it is more based on news, facts, info, as opposed to just all sorts of clickbait. Because I can listen to something and know it's absolute horse crap within about the first 15 or 20 seconds. And I know what good looks like. In terms of the stuff I like. So, INZ622 says, what weight would fighting at too short pull fights long should be like Askren result? Oh, do you mean what weight should Jack Paul be fighting at? I think he's been fighting at cruiserweight, but I mean, in terms of if there was an ideal weight, maybe it would be 175. I'm not sure. I mean, it's kind of one of those things, the whole sort of circus fight stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's not really for me. I haven't really been following it. I mean, it's not like I've been like following blow by blow this week in terms of Logan Paul, Floyd Mayweather. I know that it's been announced that Jake Paul's going to be fighting Tyrone Woodley. But that's not the stuff that gets me interested, that wants me to make videos, all that sort of stuff. I actually see some of that sort of stuff as, you know, it's I mean, it's like WWE. It's appealing to a certain audiences of the different fighters, not necessarily a boxing audience, if you know what I mean. So, Kian Burns says, who would you like Junior Farr to fight next? He needs to work on that gas tank, but early in his last fight, I was impressed. Well, I'd really like to see Farr versus Dempsey McKean. I think that's a very competitive fight. I think they're on the same level. So Dan Mack says apparently DAZN UK will be working with a third party. So who that is? I mean, if there is a third party, do you mean in terms of UK broadcasting, or is there someone else there? I'm not sure. I mean, I've seen some of the report. I mean, there was a few press releases that came out. I had a look at that, but I haven't gone into depth on that because, some of that stuff I'll look into when it sort of really impacts the guys that are following closely, the heavyweights. Because at the moment, in terms of that sort of stuff, does it really affect the different guys at heavyweight, what they're doing? I mean, you could actually argue maybe it would actually be a detriment to their profiles. I mean, that's the thing to consider here. The Sky Machine was a big machine. So IBR Stella says, all hail Boxing Squared. Thank you for that. TCFBP says, the Paul versus Mayweather fight is BS. Of course, Floyd is better boxer a million times over, but he is going to be outweighed by more than 50 pounds. If Paul wins, he will claim he be one of the greatest. Well, I guess that's the sort of carrot to take the fight and do it. But I think we could see quite a sort of spiteful Floyd Mayweather, because he's been saying, look, these guys are YouTubers. I do this for a living. He might have retired from professional boxing, but there will be some personal pride. He's going to look to really put it on him. Ruben says Sky Machine was like brain control in UK. Some people have Sky Sports News on all day. Chaim says you breaking up bad. So I'm not sort of seeing that, so apologies if I am. So Isaac says, I've missed these since Mahmoud Shah smashes the Boogeyman Lovejoy. What's the next step? Just give him undisputed, since no one else can keep up with them. I should ban you for that comment. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I mean, someone actually said in one of my videos, actually it was the one from today with Ajit Kabial, that Kabial should be targeting Char, and actually that's a great shout. I mean, Kabial shouldn't be fighting guys like Kevin Johnson. That's absolutely a waste of time. It's ridiculous. So Golden Mike says, just to say, good to catch you live. Been listening from the start of the channel. Great work. Thank you very much for listening. I do appreciate it. I know there's a lot of people that don't comment on videos that, and I mean, I'm in the same sort of mold. I mean, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube from different YouTubers that I would say 95% of the time, or maybe even more, I don't comment, but I'm listening. So I thank you, one and all, those who are supporting the channel, to be, commenting, to actually really be supporting the channel. So I thank you, one and all. And if you are leaving comments, I mean, I love that. I mean, most of the time, I mean, my sort of rule of thumb on, sort of replying to comments is I try to be there for the first sort of half an hour after a video. Sometimes if it's one of those sort of videos where it's contentious, you're going to have a lot of fanboys jumping in off the bat because it's a Wilder Joshua or Fury video. Some of those I'll just give a miss, but most of the time especially if it's other fighters, that sort of stuff. I love the back and forth, talking with you about the different bits and pieces, what's happening. So if you're watching, I mean, I sort of, in terms of the growth of my channel, it's Wilder, Fury, Joshua, all that sort of stuff. You know, I judge it on the other fighters in the heavyweight division, the other fighters that I'm covering that people aren't necessarily covering all the time. You know, some of those things might only get 1,000 or 2,000 views, that sort of stuff. But that's enough for me because I love chatting with you about those guys. If I was only talking about a few guys, how boring. I mean, I couldn't cope with that because it would just do my head in. I mean, I can't just do Joshua, Fury, Wilder videos all the time. And I know I'm leaving money and views on the table, but that's not my prime objective for this channel. I want to be covering the guys, not just the top guys, but all the guys, other stuff that's happening. And I appreciate, you know, all of you who are supporting the channel. You know, some of those guys that are coming through, those fringe guys, some of those fights that aren't necessarily the big fights, but they can be good fights. And they're fights worth talking about. And that's what really sort of gets me up for doing more videos all the time. You know, I mean, if I just wanted to make money, my prime objective would just be to cover the same 3 or 4 fighters all the time. I can't do it. I just can't do that. I have to, you know, do other things, other fighters. And it's not always going to, you know, get people interested. But for me, that's what keeps me doing videos, is the breadth of the heavyweight division. I mean, talking about those fights that aren't necessarily, you know, you have Zhili Young all of a sudden jumping to Triller. That's interesting to me. Or a rising prospect in Christian Thun facing Lucas Brown. That's interesting to me. The fact Ajit Kabayel just can't seem to do more than 1 fight a year, and when he is, it's someone we don't want to see. That's interesting to me. And it is one of these things, I'm not always just talking about it here on the channel. There's Patreon too. And often a lot of the think pieces that I do reserve for Patreon because I've got to have good content for Patreon. So I just see there's the thread, the infrared has just dropped a super chat. So thank you for that. So it says, if you want to work on longer form content with heavy editing, I'd be happy to help. I'm in Wellington, like Motivedia, but with more insight. Boom. I'm actually from the Wellington region as well. I actually work in Wellington. It is one of those sort of things. I've actually been on the train and I've seen people playing my videos, and that's a really weird feeling, I've got to say. So Tom says, Matchroom Australia should get you on board in a Johnny Nelson style analyst role. I should ban you for that comment. Johnny Nelson, who says that Usyk is more technical, Bellew is more technical than Usyk. Come on, mate. You're having a laugh by saying Johnny Nelson, right? There could have been any number of analysts, but not Johnny Nelson. Getting back to the chat here. I'm sorry I'm about 20 minutes behind and on Bear 13, so we're into it. So I'm just going to take a swig and we'll get back into it. So IBR Stella says, Hrgovic beat up Wilder in sparring when he was 20 years old. 89 Hatter says, do you see David Naika making an impact? Not at heavyweight. I mean, he's going to be a good cruiserweight. I mean, arguably with his stature and size, he could maybe boil down to 125, but I think he is one of those guys. So David Naika, for people who aren't unfamiliar, he's a New Zealand fighter. He'll go to the Olympics. He may be a medal chance at heavyweight, not super heavyweight. So probably as a pro, he's going to be a cruiser, but he sort of falls into probably not quite light heavy, maybe not quite cruiser. Just my thoughts on that. Yu Yo Ing says, what are your thoughts on Deontay Wilder. Well, it's been interesting seeing some of his comments that he's been coming out with, because obviously, you know, he's building a fight now. But there is, I mean, and I'm probably going to do a video on this as well. Deontay Wilder has always had this air of delusion. And that's not hating on Deontay Wilder. That's not saying anything new. He's always had this air of, he'll say these outlandish things. And that's just him. And sometimes he won't sound good saying them, because you're just like, really? He said that? But I hope for his sake that he's been taking the lessons in the gym. And you have to sort of go, you know, he clearly knows something didn't work in the second fight, because at some level he's acknowledged that he has to be better. He's trying to take on technical advice from Malik Scott, trying to do different things. He must know he has to be better. Whether he can, I mean, I think a lot of people will be like, well, he'll probably just revert to type. I mean, I could see Tyson Fury sort of, you know, doing slightly, I mean, from the first fight to the second fight, different game plans. Why wouldn't he do the same? I mean, I could see him doing something, you know, a halfway house. Maybe he'll be, I mean, we've been talking about since that first fight, will he go southpaw? I mean, and that would probably just mess with Deontay Wilder's strategy, something chronic. So Ben says, dude, even when you're tipsy, your informed view is a privilege to hear. Miles ahead of other YouTubers and equally as good as ESPN Sky has to offer. Thank you for your efforts, good sir. Thank you for listening. And I see the emoji there, and that maybe that's the way that I'm feeling right now on Bear. I think it's 13. I've lost count. So Ruben says, Eddie have White his pay-per-view status. If White really had earned, he would be with Sky like AJ, but he isn't. Dillian owes Eddie a lot more for his pay-per-view status. But if he's on a fight-by-fight, he can kind of go wherever he wants. Bruce says, good luck to those at Topol Golden Gloves this weekend. INZ622 says, Dillian White looking a bit too lean. PD. I really haven't sort of seen any sort of pictures of White in the past couple of weeks, so I can't really sort of weigh in on that. True says, Triller was a flash in the pan without Jake Paul. They're screwed. It's a freak show. Well, I do wonder, this event they've got coming up in a couple of weeks, you've got Teofimo versus Kambosos. You've got Michael Hunter. You've got Zhili Zhang. Separate fights. Main event costs $6 million. How are they going to recoup that? Because I think people were just going to stream the crap out of that. G-Man Boxing says, salute to Boxing Squid. Salute to you too. So G-Man Boxing also with another very good channel there. He's one of the channels I watch a lot, G-Man Boxing. Very good live streams, but also some very good sort of 6 to 10 minute videos, which are, you know, obviously great if you're traveling, the train, that sort of stuff. Kian Burns says, salute to G-Man Boxing. Yes, sir. So Luke says, who is Hrgovic fighting? Did Joker chicken out of the fight? As far as I know, I mean, it's not locked in who Hrgovic is fighting. So they've been working their way down from, you know, Charles Martin, was he 1 or 2, whatever in the rankings, all the way down. We'll have to see what happens. Thread the infrared says, Paul versus Woodley, thoughts? Well, I think this is all careful matchmaking again. I mean, if they were really going to throw Jake Paul into the deep end, they'd throw him in with a half-decent boxer. But it's all these guys from MMA that, you know, they were okay strikers, but not necessarily that good. I mean, if that makes sense. I mean, if he was fighting someone who you thought, you know, you knew was a top 15, top 20 guy, or even a top 30 guy, you'd know where his real intent was. But Tyrone Woodley, you're like, yeah, I mean. Joseph Flynn says, is Majidov finished after that injury? I kind of think so. Eddie Sussa says it's going to be 15 minutes before he gets to it, and that was probably 15 or 20 minutes ago, probably. Trying to catch up here on the chat here, so apologies for that. Ruben says, still sounding better than Lucas Brown. Thank you. Thank you. Someone said I sounded like Lucas Brown before. That was embarrassing. Catching up on the chat here, so some of that is going through earlier. So Mr. IDL says I'm from Wellington too. So I actually live in Lower Hutt, so those who live in the Wellington region will know where that is. So whenever I generally talk about where I live, I'll say Wellington region, because most people don't know where Lower Hutt is and what that is. Tom says, sorry, Johnny Nelson was first analyst that came to mind. Wasn't saying you're as bad as him. So I think I must be only about 10 minutes behind this one here. So Tara says, I watched the Usyk Bellew fight again, and Bellew was giving Usyk a boxing masterclass till he got KO'd. See, that's the thing. I mean, Bellew knew that Usyk was going to do certain things in that fight. So Bellew came out hard and fast, but he couldn't maintain it. So Bellew, I mean, I think a lot of people won't disagree that Bellew was, the first 3, 4, 5 rounds very in that fight and giving Usyk all he can handle. But ultimately, does it matter what Bellew did if he lost? His strategy did not come up trumps. Lee says, Malik Scott seems like just another yes man, especially after all those Ali comments. Yeah, I mean, it does sort of seem that way. I mean, Malik Scott is actually, he's a deep thinker. He does like to sort of, set himself apart as this sort of odd man or whatever. You know what he's trying to do. But, I mean, some of that sort of stuff did seem a bit embarrassing what he was saying. I mean, I can't see how he's like Muhammad Ali any way, shape, or form. So Stu says, Wilder should have just admitted it. He lost from the start. I don't think his ego could allow him to do that. That's just the thing. So Sam says, I think the current crop of heavyweights, with the exception of perhaps 3/4, is one of the weakest as far as I can remember. I mean, it's hard to assess what's in front of you until you've got some distance behind you. And that's the thing. A lot of people talk about the 2000s or maybe early 2010s because Vlad was sort of, reeling off those mandatories. I mean, a lot of people have talked about this being a golden era, but I mean, it's hard to see what's right in front of you until we've got a few years to actually really assess it. I mean, what we've been, at least in this first 6 months of this year, has been crappy, but it might end up panning to be a really sort of good 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But we need a bit of distance to really know that. So, Blues says, hey mate, just wondering, I couldn't find one, but have you ever done a top heavyweight top 10 of all time? Not of all time. I mean, generally if I do a top 10 or a top 15, it's just of a certain, era or certain year, that sort of thing. Cash Cow says, Boxing Squared, let us know if you're doing any call-up convos. I'll call up 100% and talk boxing with you. So that's the sort of next thing that I need to do. I've got to, I'm not good at technology. I need to sort of work out what I need to do, how I need to sort of send out links or whatever it is to do that next thing, because I would love to do that. I'm just not I'm the sort of guy that when there was a VCR to set, I'll set it for the wrong time. So I've just seen that there's a super chat that's come in from Pterodactyl. The point I was trying to make in the Bellew fight is Usyk shouldn't be a problem for AJ. I was just talking about that in a video the other week. I think Usyk is slightly past prime, but that doesn't mean he's not a good fighter. I think Usyk of 2018, the Cruiserweight King, that guy was a nightmare for anyone. But I think a few years on, injuries have set in, and I think it has affected him. And I think the age as well, because his style is a young man's style. And it's not to say he's not still a good fighter, but I do think he's not quite the guy he once was. So I think he can still give, most heavyweights a very good fight and beat a lot of heavyweights. But against guys, that are sort of 6'5", 6'6", and above, it becomes so much harder for him. So even though I sort of said, in that video that I did recently, there's a whole bunch of shenanigans going on in terms of setting the fight and getting a deal done, all that sort of stuff, I think Joshua probably wins. But as a number of guys have sort of said, I mean, I know Unger is sort of a big proponent of this as well. You have a guy like Usyk. Maybe there is one big fight, one main fight left in his career. And I could totally see it. But I do think, he's overcoming some, he's coming up from cruiserweight. He goes to heavyweight. The rigors of being a heavyweight, maintaining that weight, maybe slowing down from what he was. All these things factor in, maybe slow down, injuries. I mean, we know Usyk has been an injury problem in recent years. There's just some things, some red flags. I can't just sort of say, Usyk's going to roll through and beat Joshua. Because the bigger guy with the longer reach, with the bigger power, I could totally see Joshua winning that fight. About halfway through, or maybe it's a little bit more, Beer 13 here. So we're 1 hour 33 into the stream, 84 in the chat. Thank you for joining a Boxing Squared live stream, Boxing Squared After Dark. A few beers deep into this one. It's been months since I've done a live stream, so I appreciate that you've turned up here and you're hopefully enjoying the stream, throwing in questions, throwing in your thoughts. And I see that Right Hope Boxing is out, so thank you for joining the chat. Crypto says, you're like the Bogan version of Ty and Booth right now. I don't know whether it's a compliment or an insult. So Ruben says, are you going to be missing seeing and hearing being on the British fight nights? Who's going to keep reminding me how brave the Brits who's been undoubtedly getting bashed up? Let's hope that the commentary can be better wherever Matchroom's going. But let's face it, some of the commentary in DAZN has been awful as well. Commentary across the board has been awful. So, I'm not expecting much. So True 2022 says, Woodley has been world champ until they started testing for EPO. Now he's a different animal and lost 4 in a row. I guess it's one of those things, Jake Paul, there's a certain level of matchmaking that they're building towards something. And it could be a Floyd Mayweather fight after Mayweather beats Logan Paul, his brother. So an unverified bear says, if Wilder had been humbled after the second bout, called out his shortcomings and thanked his team, I'd be on his side for this fight. The British love a comeback story. He alienated everyone. I think part of it was, his fans were alienating everyone. But then 6 months after the fact, he came out with that dreadful, low produced in terms of quality video with the piano in the background. Bought into the stories, all sorts of stuff. He's kind of, he's almost become a meme of himself for certain things that he said and done. So Lee, the bald guy, says, be nice if you and G-Man could do something together. Time difference would make it hard, but it'd be great content from England and New Zealand together. You are both my faves. Thank you very much for that, Lee. Thread says Paul should be safe against Tyan. Tim says winning 3 rounds versus a guy that takes the first 3 rounds to get ready is hardly impressive. Not sure that was what this is in relation to, but actually I'm starting to catch up a little bit actually. So we're getting close back to the chat here. 81 in the building, wherever you are, morning, noon or night. Thank you for joining me. I'm going to take another swig of this beer here. So this is a Montes Wayfarer Pilsner. I've been digging this. It's been quite good. So this is 6 of 6. I'm not even sure what I had at the pub now. So whatever it is. So I have had a few drinks. So I'm not going to apologize for that. Had some energy. Been 4 or 5 months since I've done a live stream. It's early in the year since I've done one. I'm just hoping that you're having at least you're probably picking up, if you just tuned in, that maybe there's a few slurred words, but it is what it is. Okay, let's get back into the chat here. Let's hit this and hit this hard. So Boxing Squared, cause StreamYard is all right. I think I'm Streamlabs actually here. Robin says, who do you think Allen should box next? He should stay retired. Hashtag facts. Facts matter. Unverified Bear says, Usyk's biggest boon at heavyweight is his general toughness. I give AJ that belt. Robin Blythen says, Alan Babbage. I'm looking forward to seeing Babbage again. He had that shoulder injury, but he's one of these guys, whatever he does, he's going to be in a good fight. It's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. He may not win. He may not go all the way to a heavyweight title or anything approaching that. But he's got a gimmick. He's sticking to it. Let's just ride that out. So we've got Noah GX with their super chat there. Thank you very much for that. I do appreciate it. Knows AJ will probably beat him as holding up for maximum money. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, it just makes sense. So Unverified Bear says, crack one open for me, 10 a.m. here. That's very early. So right now we're 8:48 p.m. here in New Zealand, and it feels different because it feels like it should be later, because I actually finished a little bit earlier today, so everything feels like it should be like 11 o'clock right now. But yeah, I'm not complaining about that because had some beers and we're here. Doing a live stream, and the first one in quite some considerable time. So Cash Cow says he reckons that Usyk beats Joshua but loses to Fury. Well, whatever's going to happen, I just want to see it. I mean, it's to the point where it's boring that you've got these guys at the top of the division. They're not fighting, and they're not fighting often enough. I don't actually care who's got the belts. I just care that we're getting the fights. That's the thing. I'm not fanboying for one person over another. I just want to see these good fights. That's the thing. And just got a super chat there from Thread the Infrared. Thank you very much for that. So he says, fantasy fight, Paulie Malignaggi versus Hafthor Bjornsson, who wins? Malignaggi versus... This is the guy from Game of Thrones, right? I mean, I have to imagine that, you know, a weight class takes its toll at some point. I mean, he's just got to sort of smother and lean over Malignaggi and, you know, tire him out, right? Surely that's got to count at some point. IBR Stella says, Chris Bird has just as skilled as Usyk and had quicker hands, so Usyk will struggle against the top 5. I mean, the thing that I've always said about Usyk coming up to heavyweight is if he's not, he's going to struggle. I think the guy, you know, Usyk at 200, and, you know, not boiling down to 200, but someone who's 210, 215, with that speed and, you know, in terms of footwork and in terms of his hand speed, that's the sort of guy that's going to trouble anyone. So Usyk weighing in at, was it 231 pounds on the scale and posting that to social media. I mean, Was that real? Was that just some sort of stunt? I mean, you have to ask those questions, because I don't think that version of Usyk, if he's 230 pounds, I don't think he's nearly as effective. So Marcus says, did you watch Jalalov dominate the Asian Championships? No, I didn't see any of that. I mean, I've seen the stuff that's on social media. Lou DiBella posted a bit. Jalalov himself posted a bit to social media. So I've been downloading that sort of stuff, the clips. But I haven't watched any of the full fights, anything like that. I mean, I still think Jalalov, I mean, he's a guy to watch. He's, clearly a favorite for Olympic gold. I mean, we're just going to have to see what happens. But it didn't surprise me, because I think, what was this, like 4th time Asian champion? It didn't surprise me. He has been a top guy in the amateurs for some time, obviously juggling between amateurs and pros. But, for the past 18 months, 2 years, obviously very dedicated towards that Olympic dream. So Thread, the infra thread, says Groves versus Thor. Weight classes for a reason. Lee says, as a pundit, would like to see DAZN grab Paulie Malignaggi. I know that must be hard to read after a few jars. Well, I mean, you just heard me sort of stumble over the name, Malignaggi. I guess it's that, Paulie Malignaggi has made almost a career of being controversial, and he's a very good punter. I mean, I like listening to him. He gives very sort of solid sort of commentary and analysis, but he has made certain comments, certain things in terms of what he said that have kind of been like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, I can understand why he's been dropped across the board, because he ends up saying stuff that he probably regrets after the fact. Sideshow Bob says Paul should fight Nelson in a retirement match. Loser retires. Well, Jake Paul versus Johnny Nelson. I mean, Nelson's in pretty decent shape. I'm sure Nelson would fancy that. No Fuss says, are you sober yet? I wish. I mean, I've got some bottles of water here, but I'm probably going to have to fucking... sorry, the F-bomb just came out for the first time, so no, I'm not sober, but I'm going to have to devour some water before I go to bed. True says there will be no winner announced after Paul versus Mayweather exhibition. Paul will probably gas out like McGregor. Well, this is the thing about that exhibition. I don't know if I was the only one that thought this, but I thought Mayweather carried McGregor that whole fight and then picked him off when he wanted to. I think this one is, 8 rounds? But I think really sort of put it on him. So we've got Thread the Infrared says Mayweather can't beat Thor. Well, I think you've got different fighters there. I mean, it's not exactly apples with apples, is it? Mayweather, one of the best, if not the best of his generation, against a YouTuber. And you've got Paulie, who was, he was decent, but, I mean, Thor is what? 5, I think he's 150 odd kilos. I mean, I think at some point that's going to catch up, right? I have to think that. Ken says, I can't wait for fight camp. I'd safely say Alan the Savage is on one of the fight nights. Same with Fabio. Imagining Conor Benn, Katie Taylor, and Akoli will be 2. Hope Dillian is on it too. I mean, all good names. Let's hope they're in with good opponents. That's the thing. I mean, it's one of the things with boxing right now is, can we get some meaningful opponents? That's the thing that you want to see. But are we seeing that enough? So Cash Cow says, I want to see it. Top comment. So true. Not sure what that was about, but I'll take your word for it. Thank you so much, Cash, for that comment. So, Filoso82, AJ beats Usyk, the exact same Teofimo beats Loma. AJ will control his movement and take early rounds and get a knockdown. Usyk will recover, take later rounds, AJ by majority decision. Yeah, I think people who are saying that Joshua can't beat Usyk, I mean, I think that's a very competitive fight. I mean, I don't necessarily think that Usyk is prime Usyk anymore. And that's not to say he's not a good fighter, and I think people need to, just not take that the wrong way. Usyk is a very good fighter. So, Blue says F-bomb. Yeah, that happened. I was hoping it wouldn't, but yeah. I mean, the further I got into this, it was going to happen, right? We're almost 2 hours into the stream, and I started off at 10 bears and have had 3 or 4 more since. So, it was going to happen. So, apologies for that. Unga says, if Artem Lobov can piece up Paulie Malignaggi. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, Paulie Malignaggi, I'm struggling with that at this point. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing, that was a manufactured beef. Malignaggi's washed now. Can't even remember what that was in reference to. What, beating Jake Paul or whatever it was. Barocca before bed squared, you'll wake up I mean, totally I'll be doing that. I take Barocca as a matter of course anyway, so no, I will be doing that. So Angus Young says, hey Boxing Squared, haven't been here in a while. Well, this is a rare live stream at this point. First in 4 or 5 months, and I've been on the gas, so yeah, a number of drinks deep here, and I've caught up on the chat. Amazingly, I have caught up on it. I'm actually down the bottom of the page, so yeah, I'll drink to that. And actually, the 3 beers that I started with, I'm just putting them back in the box here. We are all done. So I'm going to wrap up here in the next sort of 5 or 10 minutes, I think. So I do thank one and all for joining here. We're at 79 in the building, wherever you are, morning, noon, or night. I do appreciate you coming to the channel, supporting the live stream. We don't do many of these at the moment. And by I say we don't do many of these, I mean me, because I'm the only person who's doing them, but I appreciate it. So, okay, well, obviously that wasn't well received. Now 72 in the building, 7 people dropped off. Well, bugger you who dropped off there, but thank you to Unga who dropped a $100 super chat. I really do appreciate that. So where are we? So I'll get back to the chat here. I was sort of just meandering there. Enoch Powell says the establishment hates Eastern European fighters. They've been frozen out since the wall came down. Sven says Mayweather definitely carried McGregor. The whole fight, toyed with him. Your channel is sick as. Love it. Keep it the work up, bro. Thank you very much for that. Lee says, now I've heard you drop your first F-bomb. My weekend can start. Okay, well, I'm sure, yeah. Lee, if you don't know, big Ebony Bridges fan. Cash Cow says, Boxing Squared, about to see the good fights, matchups, and fights that are meaningful. Let's hope that that can happen in boxing because they're all too rare. Ruben says, does the Jean Pascal situation make you raise eyebrows about the upcoming Manny Pacquiao Spence fight and Donaire Renaissance? I mean, it's really hard to gauge because, I mean, if you're to go by what people say who are in the business, that basically everyone's on it, that everyone is microdosing, but you can't tar everyone with the same brush with no proof. I mean, it really is a catch-22. All things awesome gaming, Boxing Squared versus his liver. He wins by UD, via his liver. Okay. Well, I think things will be all right. Blue says, later mate, thank you for joining me here. Enoch says, Malinaji dropped because he said Eastern Europeans are currently the best, and that isn't even close. That as far as African American boxers go, every dog has his day. Yeah, I mean, Malinaji is not, he said a number of things over time where he's, said some clangers. But in terms of his general commentary, he is a good, play-by-play guy on cards. Unga says, rumor has it Joyce vs. Huck for the European being remade, if not Usyk. Thoughts? It's one of those in the video that I did just the other week that if that is still the current order, the private negotiation, I think that probably is one that could get made, but obviously dependent on other things. Joyce wins. Huck is pretty washed at this point. So True22 says, don't forget to hit like. Yes, please. Darren says, do you think Vlad is really going to make a comeback? At this point, I've just lost interest. I mean, he's been teasing this since, 2017, 2018? I mean, it's boring now. Thread... The Infrared says, seriously though, if you're open to collaborating on boxing content, I've contacted you before on Twitter, editing, website, research, design, video. You've got the base, let's build it up from Wellington. Well, it's sort of been one of these things with the channel that it's just always been a one-man band. I mean, I've had actually probably 20 or 30 approaches over the years from different people saying about editing or this, that, and the other. It is one of these things where it is mostly has been a hobby project. And I don't mean that to sound in a bad way. Boxing is one of my passions and I pursue it. And the way that I pursue it is watching it, but also covering it through the channel. And we're actually about to come up to, because what are we now? It's sort of 4th of June here in New Zealand, so 3rd of June elsewhere. 30th of June, it's 4 years. 4 years. And I know for a lot of people that may sort of not seem like a lot, but in terms of the YouTube game, I mean, because I think about 1,700 videos by now. So you think over 4 years, what's that, 400-ish videos a year, which is, more than one. I mean, I think it's one of these things when I started out, within about 6 or months or a year, I had about 400 or 500 videos. But it's, I don't want to say it's a chore because it's a real privilege, running this channel, bringing you coverage, doing what I do. And I get a lot of people are not going to like everything that I do. They don't watch everything that I do. But bits and pieces, people support, and that sort of stuff. I appreciate anyone who comes to the channel, appreciates the content, because it is at the end of the day, it's a hobby, it's a labor of love. This isn't my full-time job or anything like that. And I mean, I know a lot of you, watch probably dozens, if not sometimes, more than that in terms of YouTube channels. But if you come to my one, you enjoy the videos, enjoy the content, you're here live now with me, it is a privilege that I'm able to, engage with you. And often that sort of thing is forgotten. But I appreciate all the support over the years, because it's almost 4 years now. And I sort of look at that, why I started the channel and when I started the channel, and it honestly feels like a lifetime ago. And I know some people may have only been, watching or viewing for a short time, but for those who've, through the long haul, recent years, I appreciate it. Anyone who's just, watched a video here and there, if you only subscribed last week, it doesn't matter. I appreciate what you've, brought to the channel, brought to, it's my life, it's your life. I appreciate it. Anyway, I'll get down off my sort of soapbox here, get back to the chat here. I see someone's talking about Big Pharmacy Miller. Scott, one of the long-time supporters of the channel, Big Pharmacy Miller to be in a big fight down the road. what's he got left? 6 months of his suspension. It's almost inevitable. Unga says, do the damn lineal lol. Yeah, Unga's written some scripts. I haven't managed to get round to part 2, part 3 of the... I mean, I will get to it. So at the moment, my current job is till the end of September. That's when the contract finishes. So I will try to get to that. Lee says, thanks for going live. Your content as always, and great content as always, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. P.S. Send Ebony. We'll send Ebony. She can always, if she's sending you anything, send the news through. That will be most welcome. Thread says, but you need to branch out 30k followers. Well, that's the thing. I don't really know what I need to do next, because this is all grown organically through hard work and hard graft. The what next is still a question. If I work hard, deliver content that people want to see, people will keep coming to the channel will keep growing. Any more than I'm doing now, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, people have always said, start up a Facebook, start up an Instagram, start up a this, that, and the other. A lot of that stuff is a lot of time, it's a lot of effort, sometimes it can be a lot of money. So, you really have to, move carefully as well. So Noah says he watches from Japan. Thank you very much. Wherever you're watching in the world, 65 in the building, morning, noon, or night, wherever you are, I thank you for tuning in. Not just the live stream, but in general, following the videos, following the channel. It does mean a lot to me. And as I say, we're coming up to 4 years. It's, it feels like a long time, but it also feels like it just went like that. So Suko says, do you reckon Eddie Hearn might contact some YouTube channels for some work, e.g. commentary or any other thing in that line? Well, I think one thing that is maybe overblown is that some promoters are involved with certain YouTube channels. I mean, the commentary, the interview channels, that's a different story. The different channels that you can think of, the IFL, Seconds Out, Behind the Gloves, they're different to the stuff that I do, the videos that I do, that sort of stuff. I mean, maybe there's some in the UK that have had approaches, but I've never heard from anyone from any promoter to do anything. I think some of that stuff is overblown, where people just don't like the opinion, so they think, oh yeah, they must be paid, all that sort of stuff. I think a lot of that stuff is overblown. Okay, so we're 40 seconds off 2 hours, so I've got to wrap it up there. I'm starting to get a little bit hoarse here, so thank you for joining me. I mean that. First live in months. I might have been a little bit, a few sheets to the wind there, but hey, it is what it is. But I thank you for joining me wherever you are, morning, noon, or night, as I like to say. 79 in the building. Smash that like button, and we will be back over the weekend. And yeah, I'm at punchinggrace.com to watch the Simon Keane fight. Simon Keane versus Don Hainsworth. It'll be about 40 New Zealand dollars on the subscription. Yeah, I'm a madman. I'm going to get it. I'll watch it. I'll bring it to you. We'll see you over the weekend for the Dubois fight. We're going to have Ajit Kabayel facing Kevin Johnson. Another meaningless fight, but hey, we're here. We're doing it. Thank you very much. I hope you have a good long weekend. And sorry, I say long weekend because it's a long weekend here in New Zealand. As I said earlier,